I'm Stephen Greep, and I'm going to talk about bone and antler working and the sorts of objects that were made from these materials. Before the introduction of plastics, objects made from skeletal material, and in particular animal bone and deer antler, were very common. During the pre-Roman Iron Age, a wide range of objects were made, with the principal materials being red deer antler and cheap metatarsals, metacarpals and tibia. A typical range of finds from the Iron Age is shown here from Danebury Hall Fort. During the Iron Age, there is no evidence of well-organised workshop production. Objects were just manufactured from materials at hand as and when they were needed. While objects manufactured from skeletal materials were invariably of low cost, there is evidence during the Iron Age for a small number of finds imported from the Roman world before the invasion of AD 43. With the invasion, however, there was a marked change in both the way that the industry was organised as well as the types of materials used. The only technological change with the Roman invasion was the introduction of the use of the lathe. Whilst the lathe was obviously known in the pre-Roman Iron Age, it was not utilised in bone and object manufacture. The Roman invasion changed all of that, with a range of lathe-turned objects such as this box or cabinet hinge segment. There was also a marked change in the type of animal bone used, with a shift from sheep to cattle being the main focus. Cattle foot bones were apparently sourced directly from the slaughterhouse, these having little meat value, but excellent for working with a thick, straight section of bone. All this reflects an organisation to the industry not represented in the preceding Iron Age. Red deer continued in use, and for some particular forms, but it wasn't the prominent type of material utilised until the 4th century, when there seems to have been an explosion in the amount of red deer antler available, leading to a considerable amount just wasted. In the 1st century, immediately after the conquest, a whole new range of objects appear, against a background of the continuation of Iron Age forms, especially in more rural settings, such as offcuts of red deer antler with saw marks. New forms during the Roman period included a wide range of military equipment, such as this gladius handle. To examine some of the changes closely, we'll look at one major form, the humble hairpin, some 20,000 of which have been recorded from Roman Britain alone. Together with other common forms, such as needles and gaming counters, like these, typically form up to 50% of objects made from skeletal materials on any site. Firstly, how do we know that these function as hairpins? The hairpin or acus is mentioned in classical literature and can be seen in use, for example, in this funerary painting from the Fayum. Hairpins were actually found in this well-known but no less remarkable find of hair from late Roman York, and from positions around the skull in a number of inhumations, such as this one from Colchester. A note of caution must be sounded, however, as position in graves show that sometimes these might also have been used as shroud pins. Here are a group of the most common forms of late Roman hairpins from London. They are very simple and common, and illustrate a basic chronological and typological difference from the earlier Roman forms. The earlier forms have simple pointed heads and tapering stems, and were made to be decorative and stand proud of the hair. The forms in front of me now are later Roman. They are shorter with a swelling stem. The change in hairstyles which prompted this change in hairpin types is reflected, for example, in the coins of the mid-2nd century, as we can see from these illustrations. Manufacturing evidence for hairpins is widespread. However, individual work finds which appear to be from hairpins could also be from needles. Furthermore, the quantities of waste produced from object manufacture is substantial, as these finds from London demonstrate. This is the same at all periods. Here is another example of clear workshop waste, this time of red deer antler from a furniture maker's workshop in late 4th century South Shields. Therefore, isolated pieces of sawn or otherwise worked bone or antler do not necessarily represent workshop deposits, rather than just stray finds. Given that the earlier, longer hairpins were designed to stand out from the hair, it's no surprise that we find evidence of decoration more commonly on these forms. In particular, the use of staining, as on these examples from London. These are, of course, late Roman pieces. This is probably a good time to point out that many pins and other bone and antler objects could be polished, sometimes with beeswax giving a shiny yellow appearance, and decorative inlay was probably a very common occurrence, as shown on these reproductions from South Shields. Lastly, bone and antler hairpins are so common that we can sometimes identify regional types, and also imported forms. There are 10 similar pins from Britain, but over 400 from France and Germany, with manufacturing centres being identified in Paris and Trier, making it likely that these were imported into Britain. Objects made from bone and antler are very common in the Roman period, as you can see from the selection of objects here. If you want to find out more about bone and antler working and bone and antler objects, there are a number of excavation reports with quantities of this material published in them. I hope that in this short film we have been able to demonstrate how things changed with the Roman invasion and some of the information which can be found about them.